Welcome to a ride on the outside. MMA is full of people on the inside, but what about the ones that watch from beyond? Welcome to the MMA Outsiders with Tom Albano and Zain Bando on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
Hey guys, long time no see.
What's up?
Hey,
How are we?
doing good.
Hello everybody. I hope you missed me. Welcome to MMA Outsiders, episode 76, here on the Empty the Bench Network, presented by Wolf Spread. I'm Tom Albano, back after a couple of weeks away. Zain Bando, Pat Danna. Pat, thank you so much for stepping up. You held down the fort while I was gone for a little while. But I am back now, back on the hosting front, and here to talk all the MMA and the boxing with you, because there's been a lot that's needed to talk about.
Oh, for sure. Oh, and 1,000%. Before we jump into all of that and so much more, though, we would just like to ask that you please subscribe and please share the show across social media at youtube.com/ETB Network. You can follow the MMA Outsiders at MMA Outsiders ETB. You can follow the network at ETB Network. Of course, my name is Zain Bando. You can follow my work at ZanBando99. I'm a staff writer for BJPen.com and MMA Knockout. I'm Albano, who's to the left of my screen. You can find his work over at MMA News and Fanside and MMA. And then Pat Danna, who will me a producer. Shout out to everything that he does for us. You can find his work over at Combat Sports UK, and you can follow his work across social media at Pat Danna MMA. And of course, you can listen to the MMA Outsiders wherever you get your podcasts. It's up on every major podcasting platform. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast, be sure to head over to the YouTube home and ETB Network, as was revealed this before we came, and then we hit a brand new subscriber count. How about that?
Yeah, right before we started recording, boys, we officially passed 700 subscribers on ETB.
Nice.
Let's go.
All right. Don't forget to go to etbpodcast.com for more information about the network, blogs from some of our contributors. Shout out to MMA Outsiders' newest contributor, Brett Cagle, who's been doing some good stuff over there. And actually, you can watch his new show that just premiered before every fight night. Actually happened just last week, right before last week's fight night card, Brett's Best Bets, where you can hear him talk about, what he thinks are some best bets that you might want to consider for the upcoming fight nights. Also want to give a shout out to Wolf Spreads, who's been the partner of the Empty the Bench Network, MMA Outsiders, presented by Wolf Spreads. Are you looking to get involved in the action while rooting for your favorite team? Have you ever had a friendly debate on who can pick more games correctly? Does all this talk about parlays, lines, and over-unders make your head spin, and you want to learn more about this sports betting hoopla? Gamble with us and come check out Wolf Spreads. We're running a sports betting We've been running sports betting competitions completely free on the Wolf Spreads app during the NFL season, and we hope to do some little more of that, even though the NFL's not in season anymore. Here's how it works. Everybody gets 2,000 fantasy dollars. That's fake money to bet on the action. You can have little leagues with your friends and such. Whoever makes the most profit with their 2K bankroll wins. Wolf Spreads has competition available for all sports: the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college football, and basketball. Put fantasy dollars on the over/under, the money line, or the spreads. Compete for bragging rights with your fellow players while having additional fun watching sports and not risk losing your house in the process. Wolf Spreads, sports betting for friends who love the action.
And Tom, speaking of sports betting as well, shout out to Brett Cagle for hitting on a plus 800 underdog prop on last weekend's UFC, so you can check out more of his work. As I'm just alluded to on that's best bets. We're happy to have him.
For sure. All right, let's talk about some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And I do want to apologize for my voice. I decided I was going to come back, and then today I wake up and my voice is gone. So I'm not going to get into why I've disappeared the last couple of weeks, but let's just say this is another layer of smack on me. It's like that just never seems to end. But just to preview some of the things we're going to talk about, we have a big match, guys. Are you ready? I know the BMF title is now Justin Gaethje's, but are you ready for the BMF rematch in boxing?
Woo.
Absolutely.
Masvidal Diaz in boxing.
Said no one ever.
No.
No one asked for it.
Nope.
Right.
No one wanted this.
Conor's supposedly trying to come back as he's touring for Roadhouse right now. UFC 301 main event's been announced, and people are already going to hoopla about that. PFL, are they going to honor the Bellator Lightweight Grand Prix? Are they not? Is Francis Ngannou going to debut in the PFL? Now he's teasing that he might go third boxing fight. We'll talk about Vegas 88, Bellator 302, Vegas 89. We'll talk about all of that. First of all, want to start today's show with a little shout out to the Hammer himself, Mark Coleman. So it has been I gotta say, a horror week in the life of Mark Coleman. So the story goes on Tuesday, I think the morning of Tuesday, the 12th, so last week. He gets awoken by the sound of his dog, and apparently what's happened is the parent's house went on fire. He ran in, was able to save the parents, ran back in one more time to try to save the dog. His name was Hammer. Unfortunately, he was taken by the flames and by the smoke inhalation, and Coleman collapsed inside the house. Sadly, the dog did not make it. Paramedics rushed there, brought him to a hospital in Toledo, I believe, and basically Coleman was fighting for his life for a couple of days. He manages to pull through. He's allowed to go home. They're traveling from Toledo to Columbus, the family. They're only an hour on the road. Coleman gets pains in his chest and arms. They go back to the hospital. He's suffering from pneumonia. So it's been an incredibly rough week for that family, especially for Mark Coleman. But my God, Mark Coleman, you know how we talk about how these fighters sometimes are superhuman and how these fighters are like real life superheroes? I think Mark Coleman really fits that description of being a superhero.
Yeah, that is a real life superhero story if I've ever seen one, and just a very, I mean, I guess sad but heroic week at the same time. And I think a lot of people will remember what he did for his heroism for a long time. And given what he's meant to the sport of MMA, hopefully he's honored in the ways that he deserves, because I think most people, not just athletes, but people would have been scared for their lives to even come close to thinking about doing what he remotely did. So you have to give him a ton of credit, and seeing him in good spirits, seeing him in videos like the one with at Brown where he's back in the gym. It's good to see him on his feet. It's good to see him happy. It's good to see him in good spirits, and hopefully he'll make the fullest recovery he can. But given everything that the guy's been through, both physically and mentally, you have to really respect and honor what he's been through, even if you don't know much about him or his story. It's very, very cool. It's a story that I think is going to be one of the most feel-good stories of the year when we look back on 2024 when it's all said and done.
Yeah, as sad as it is that he lost his dog Hammer. I mean, it's still an amazing story that he was able to save his parents, and just like Tom said, real life superhero, man. Seriously, a real life superhero.
That man was willing to give his life for others, and that is the definition of superhero.
1000%.
All right. After a little shout out to Mark Coleman, let's talk about the madness that is the world of combat sports and the news that breaks in it. So,
Sounds good.
as I alluded to at the start of the show, the original BMF title fight is now going to have another fight, but it's not going to take place in MMA. No, Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz are going to be competing in boxing now. Obviously, for Nate Diaz, this is going to be his first pro boxing fight after getting, I'll be honest, just absolutely beaten down by Jake Paul back in August. I can't believe I'm saying that. And Jorge Masvidal, this is going to be, I think, his first fight in a little while as well.
Yeah. No, this is it's a fight. Like we said, it's 4 years in the making, but I don't really know who asked for it. I mean, the first fight wasn't competitive at all in MMA, and it mostly took place on the feet. I just don't don't really see how this one goes much different. I think Masvidal will probably outbox him unless his cardio fails him and Nate Diaz wears him down throughout the fight. I mean, this is it's a fairly intriguing match, I guess, but I don't think anyone really needed to see this.
No, and it's on a pay-per-view platform that no one's ever heard of either. So
Wait, what pay-per-view platform is this on?
it's on like Famio or something.
I'm pretty sure it's the one that failed to pay out Logan Paul after his Floyd Mayweather fight.
Oh dear.
Yep.
Wait a minute. And this is on June 1st.
Yep.
That means they're going head to the UFC that's going to take place in New Jersey. That pay-per-view.
Yep.
Great marketing. Great
Great
marketing.
Great job.
Terrible.
I think everyone will be tuning into this one.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure.
What are you? So based on what we're saying, your guys' early picks are Jorge Masvidal to outbox him and win an easy decision. What do you guys think?
Pat pretty much summed it up. The fight's going to go one of two ways: either Masvidal completely piecing him up again, or Masvidal tiring out and Nate Diaz making a strong comeback. Whether he gets a win or not by the decision depends, I guess, on when Masvidal tires out. But that's the only two ways that this fight's going.
Well, I bet you this. It's going to basically be a home game for Diaz, considering that it's in Inglewood and he has roots in San Jose. So
that's true.
There's going to be a ton of Diaz supporters there. So
very true.
That's true too. And honestly, I know their first fight was more neutral territory in Madison Square Garden, but being there for that press conference on the riverfront,
pier, right?
On the pier, yeah, and seeing all the fight media, being there for media day for 244 and getting the feelings all around town. I feel like that was a Nate Diaz home game too, even though Masvidal was the East Coast guy.
Right. Good.
Here's my question.
Okay.
Here's my question. Is there going to be a doctor there ready to stop the fight again?
No.
I would say no. No, I would say no.
Hopefully the boxing gloves avoid any cuts.
Could we do this under Queensberry rules?
Who knows? There could be a fight between the Scrap Pack and American Top Team when it's over. You never know.
Why would I not be surprised by that?
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
All right. I'll just say I'll believe it when I see it. That's right.
Yeah, you guys see the banner on the screen. You know what we're talking about.
I'm just gonna shoot it straight because no one in the MMA media space is willing to admit it. There is serious issues going on right now behind the scenes. No one wants to talk about, which is why nothing is being done on any sort of front.
Yeah, I mean these issues behind the scenes. I mean they seem to be on the UFC side. If I had to guess, the UFC is trying to lock up Conor full time. Not even because they want him to fight another 8 times in the promotion, but it's the same thing they did with John Jones when he signed an 8-fight contract before the Cyril Gane fight. They want to lock him up to make sure they have control over him, just so he can't go anywhere else following his UFC career. And it doesn't seem like Conor's falling for it. Conor wants to finish out this 2-fight deal and probably go and do whatever the hell he wants. Maybe another boxing match, maybe something. I don't know. Maybe
he wants to face the winner of Masvidal Diaz in boxing.
Oh, great. And hey, if Nate wins, that could sell for sure. If Nate Conor, Nate Conor 3 in boxing.
Oh, that would be crazy. I would buy it or go to it for sure.
Yeah, see, so it definitely piques the interest of a lot of people if Nate were to pull that off. Even if Jorge were to win, honestly, that probably could sell a bit too. Just because Conor McGregor, man.
I know. Well, just to give full context, because Conor McGregor's doing press tours right now for Roadhouse, which just got released on Prime. I haven't seen it yet, but apparently the first reviews for it were very good.
When this comes out, there's still going to be 2 days until Roadhouse releases, because it releases on the 21st.
Okay. So on the day off, the day 2 off. Pardon me. But the first reviews for Roadhouse are very good. He's doing the press tours for it, and apparently he's saying, I have 2 fights left. I want to, get through this Roadhouse press tour and then get back to training. Admit, by the way, to his home publication, the Mac Life, that basically every time the fight with Chandler gets delayed, he actually loses a bit of motivation. And it stems back to what you guys are saying about this whole idea of trying to lock Conor up. But I'll just say this. When you have Nate Diaz tweeting out support for McGregor, and you know the hatred that those two have, you know that's a bad situation.
Yeah, what do you say? Free Conor McGregor, right?
Free Conor on St. Patty's Day. Free Conor.
Nate's a marketing genius, man. He knows when to say what he needs to say.
It's true. Okay, so I guess let me pose the question to you guys. On the day that this episode is going to be released, it is going to be March 19, 2024. So as of March 19, 2024, if you were to only answer one more question for the rest of the year, and that question was, does Conor McGregor fight in the UFC in 2024? What is your guys' answer? Yes or no?
I'd probably say yes at this point. Seems like he actually wants to come back.
I'm going to say yeah, too. I'm going to say yeah. What do you think, Tom?
I'll say yes, but at the rate we're going and based on recent developments, it's not going to be based on Conor. It's going to be based on the UFC and Danna.
Yeah.
So are you guys saying that we're gonna be waiting until November and we're still not gonna know if he has a fight or not?
Wouldn't shock me.
Real. That's the potential reality.
Yeah, wouldn't shock me at all, honestly.
All right. Speaking of UFC schedule and speaking of appropriate timing. So remember, guys, right before I left, I threw out that question. I think I threw it to you, Pat. I said, well, is the UFC going to take a risk on Alex Pantoja because of what they had to do for the shuffling with UFC 300? Look like yes.
Yeah, they're taking the risk. It's exactly
they're going to have Alex Pantoja headline a pay-per-view as a flyweight champion in his home country of Brazil, and he's going to take on Steve Erceg, who's going to get a title shot in just his fourth fight in the promotion.
At a number 10 ranked spot too, which is something, I mean, we haven't seen in a while someone that's ranked as low as 10 get a title shot.
The last time I can think of somebody as low as him getting a title shot, I think of the UFC 223 madness in Brooklyn where Ally on a day notice.
But that's even the crazy part. That was a vacant title fight. It wasn't even a champion defending his title.
And it was 1 day's notice.
And there was so much chaos leading up. I think Iaquinta was the third option. I think they wanted to get Pettis first. He wanted more money. They wanted Felder. The commission wouldn't do it.
They had Holloway
originally.
Yes. They had Holloway and the commission pulled him.
Yes.
Yeah, in the middle of him cutting weight.
So he was their fourth. I mean, technically fifth if you want to count Tony, who was supposed to take that fight. But he was, I mean, Iaquinta was their fifth option. This was their first option for this. I mean, nothing like this has happened probably since Michael Bisping, Dan Henderson, where Henderson was 13 ranked.
I would say another example of this, not really, but kind of similar to TJ Dillashaw versus Joe Soto, UFC 177.
Yeah, when Joe Soto had to fill in. Yeah, he had to fill in for Barao. Yeah.
Because Barao fainted in a hot tub.
Yep, hit his head.
In his debut, too.
Yeah, that is crazy to think about.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys saw on social media, Muhammad Bakayev not happy, flipping the UFC the bird on social media and saying WTF.
Well, actually, I don't know if you saw today, he met with Mick Maynard and Dana White, it seems like, and he said he praised them for whatever and for believing in his future and everything. Makes me think he's probably on that Manchester card, probably against a guy like Brandon Royval, who feels like he needs to prove himself with another win for a title shot because he didn't get this one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But why do you so then that leads to a follow-up. Then why do you think Erceg got this fight over Makayev then? Why do you think that happened?
I know a couple of people, I know a couple of MMA fans who tweeted in response to Makayev that his performance against Alex Pereira not too long ago wasn't exactly impressive, and we don't know if they can really build a title shot off of that. To which Makayev actually replied that he has the second longest win streak or something like that in flyweight history right now.
Which is true.
Yeah, it is true. I mean, but it is interesting because, I mean, if you just want to compare it side by side, which you can never do, they fought on the same card, Erceg and Mokaev, and one of them clearly had a lot more an impressive win as the other one. So that's my only take on it, is that they wanted a very fresh name, and Pantoja actually said that he asked for Erceg because he wanted that unknown in the division. He wanted an unknown in a title fight where he wasn't like fully knowing what to expect, I guess, you know?
So now that means that we open the possibility of either a Pantoja performance, where it's just a one-sided beatdown, or that Erceg pulls off. I mean, if he pulls this off, guys, that has to be. I don't want to say a lock, considering the madness that we see during the PFL regular seasons.
Yeah.
Thinking of Jesus Pinedo last year, but Erceg beating Pantoja in this kind of fight
In Brazil too
would be. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to say a lock, but for a potential upset of the year.
It would it would be on the same level as when Bisping knocked out Luke Rockhold for sure.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no one. I mean, I know some people, even me, were calling for Erceg to get a title shot, and I didn't expect it would happen. Yeah, I didn't think it would happen, honestly.
Yeah, I think as it gets closer, a prediction may change, but for now, I think Pantoja is going to win a 5-round decision and defend his title. But we'll see.
I honestly like it though. I like that unknown factor of Erceg, where you don't know if he's gonna win. You don't know how he stacks up against Pantoja. We haven't seen enough of him against that level of competition. So I like it. I mean, I feel like it's pretty cool. It's interesting.
And honestly, if you're gonna complain about this main event, then I say two things. One, a little disrespectful to flyweights, and I say that as somebody who paid for a couple of pay-per-views when Mighty Mouse Johnson was main eventing.
As did I.
So I give the flyweights all the respect. I've advocated for more flyweight main events. And number two, if you're mad about this, blame the UFC scheduling. This was supposed to be Pereira versus Hill, and they just completely butchered the handling of a 300 main event.
Yep.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right.
And to make matters even worse, they're going head-to-head with Canelo versus Munguia in Vegas on the same night.
I'll be honest though, I don't think they have too much to worry about. Because
I don't think so either, but I'm just saying.
I mean, fair enough. Co-main event though. This is interesting. Jose Aldo is coming out of retirement. He's taking on Jonathan Martinez. I saw a quote from Martinez before. He was offered to fight the first time and he didn't believe it. Yeah. He's like, wait a minute. Jose Aldo?
Yeah, no, he said he didn't even think it was Jose Aldo.
Which leads me to believe he was thinking it was like Jose Aldi or something like that.
He just misinterpreted the name that they gave him for the fight.
Yeah, he also misinterpreted, I'm supposed to have an interview with Helvani, not Ariel Helvani.
Yeah, no. So apparently what I was hearing that Aldo's return has been in the works for a while, but originally it was supposed to be Dom Cruz in this fight. Apparently he didn't want to go to Brazil, and pretty disappointing because, I mean, I feel like Aldo Cruz is a fight people have wanted to see for probably almost 10 years now. I mean, seriously,
yeah,
though,
I mean, they both could have fought when they were champions, and it never happened because Cruz was always hurt. So,
yeah, and now Cruz doesn't want to go to Brazil, which, I mean, I don't necessarily blame him, but at the same time, man, like it's been
a fight about 10 years in the making, or something.
And it's been over like 550 days since he last fought. I mean, he shouldn't be able to pick and choose locations at this point. He's sitting on his ranking. I mean, I just feel like if that was true and it was supposed to be Dom Cruz, which is what I heard from multiple sources, it's kind of BS, honestly. I mean, I just don't know how he's still ranked if he's been just clearly sitting on his ranking, not accepting fights.
And if that's the case, knowing his injury history, knowing everything that's happened to him, why is he still an active fighter?
He's commentating more than anything nowadays. I mean, he might as well just fill into that role full time. I don't know why return to fighting is even in the mix. You should just call it quits at this point if he's not going to fight.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can think of is name value, but even that doesn't even merit like him fully continuing his career, given that he's done everything it seems like that he's wanted to do in the sport.
Yeah.
He's a bantamweight pioneer. But anyway, going back to the Aldo Martinez fight, this is without question, and given Martinez's recent win streak, the biggest step up in competition. Do you guys think that Martinez is any sort of a chance? Because I do, because you never know. You could see the Aldo that gets caught napping and he gets caught early, or you could see the Aldo that dominates for 15 minutes and the fight isn't even close. So what do you guys think in a way too early prediction on March 18th?
I think there's going to be a battle of leg kicks. That's what I think. I mean, Martinez, I think it said the stat was that Martinez has as many leg kick finishes in his last 3 fights than Aldo has in his entire career. So I feel like this has to be a battle of just 2 straight rippers of that leg. So I'm interested to see who could rip that leg harder. Honestly, if I had to guess though, I'd probably lean Aldo. I mean, he was 3-1 in his last 4 fights before he retired. His only loss was to Merab, who's gonna fight for the title next, and he had beaten Rob Font, Pedro Munoz, and Chito Vera, 3 currently ranked guys. It's not like he had fought bums and won 3 fights. He had fought some really legit guys. I mean, that Merab fight was thought to be a title eliminator at the time. So that's my thing with this is I have no reason to believe Aldo has lost a step. I mean, he stayed boxing. It's not like he completely retired. So I'd probably have to have an early lean to Jose Aldo in this fight.
It's the people's main event.
I'll lean to Aldo as well, just because he has the experience factor. A little concerned the fact that he had been boxing. Like, it's great in terms of keeping active, but obviously boxing, MMA, I've talked about the preparations for 2 are very different. So it's been a while since he's prepared for an MMA fight. And yeah, the Aldo Merab fight, definitely, it was Aldo's in his last 4 fights, but that was also a very ugly looking fight. Now, the expression, it takes 2 to tango. So
yeah,
you could obviously there's blame to go around on all sides for that. But yeah, I'll rely on Aldo's experience that he'll be able to pull off a comeback victory. And for a fight card that's taken place in Brazil, an Aldo victory would be fantastic.
Would be massive
for sure. And it would spice up the division in more ways than one. Because not a lot of people were expecting Aldo to come back as quickly. And no disrespect to anybody that Martinez has fought, but to me, the only notable name where Aldo and Martinez would share anything in common is Cub Swanson, which I think is pretty interesting. So
that is interesting for sure.
Yeah. Briefly going over to the PFL, guys, for a couple of a couple of headlines before we go over back to UFC. So apparently, this headline, I should give full context, comes from an interview Alex Shabley did with Mike Bone of MMA Junkie, Yahoo. And basically, the idea is that he's going to be getting the title shot in Paris this May, taking on Usman Nurmagomedov. However, it seems like it won't be, according to Alex, the finals of the Lightweight Grand Prix. So obviously, before Bellator was bought by the PFL, they were in the middle of the Grand Prix. You had Usman Nurmagomedov beating Brent Primus, Alex Shabley winning the other fight at Bellator 301, which you were there for, Zan, in Chi-Town. So it looked like that was setting up the final. But in the days leading up to that Chicago card, Usman Nurmagomedov, it turns out, fails a drug test, gets suspended for 6 months. And so that Grand Prix final gets a big question mark on it. Is Primus going to advance? Is this going to be an interim title? Is this going to be for a vacant title? Is the $1 million still going to be on the line? And we don't get answers because PFL ends up buying Bellator officially at that point.
right.
And now that the bout is scheduled for May, Usman Nurmagomedov's suspension is going to be up. And prior to being bought by PFL, Bellator elected to nip Usman Nurmagomedov of the championship. Reason why, a little unclear. It might have to do with, I don't know, ignorance maybe of the substance that was illegal that he inhaled.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was ever confirmed exactly what the illegal substance was.
I don't
I think
think
they just like hinted at like a general thing it could have been, but I don't think they ever released what it actually was.
You know what? While you guys talk, I'll look that up.
Yeah, no. But I mean, listen, the question I have for you guys would be, do you think it's right, or do you think the PFL has a right to do this? I mean, it is pretty messed up that these guys sign contracts to be in a Grand Prix both ended up in the finals, and then things out of their control are now going to not let them pay the $1 million out.
So before Zan, before you answer,
Yep.
this article, an old article from November from ESPN, Ali said that Nurmagomedov a prescription medication that caused the positive test. Ali said Nurmagomedov was unaware that the medication contained a prohibited substance in California, which uses the WADA code for its banned list of banned drugs. So
Okay.
that they never said specifically what it was, but
Yeah, that's
basically
all we
something
got.
on the WADA list.
And it took Ali to say something, not even the promotion, which is very, very strange.
Which you know, I don't know how you feel about this, Sam, one way or another. Obviously, I speak with a little bias in me with my association with the PFL. But I will say a lot of this blame I put on Bellator, because if with a suspension like this, accidental or not, like, that's worthy of being stripped of your championship. We've seen champions stripped for stuff at this level, if not maybe a little less.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I'll just say this. I think it's messed up from a part of the fans too, because if the fans had been watching the Grand Prix the entire time and they're anticipating the $1 million final and they don't get it, there's no cap end to the tournament. So from that perspective, I think it's wrong. But when looking at the other side of it, I mean, I'm obviously not a promoter. I'm an outsider in so many different ways when it comes to this kind of thing. But I do think, in a sense, is the PFL right in a way from an ethics standpoint? Yes, but in terms of what the fighters had initially agreed to, the enters know that are wrong, and like you alluded to with Tom just a minute ago, it mostly falls on Bellator given the timing of everything that transpired and them not being transparent with the fighters, or be quite frankly the media, because they even said it that that's their scrum that they did in the middle of the week at Bellator 301. They still had no idea what was going on with the $1 million Grand Prix, and no one was going to answer any questions about it because they didn't know. So it's very
So, Sam,
it's very confusing.
Sam, before I ask my follow-up, for those who may not, who may need more legal term and more, simple term, can you explain what you mean by PFL was right in terms of ethics?
Well, I think they're right in the sense that at the time that the suspension occurred, it was still under the Bellator Viacom banner. So now that PFL has full control of the promotion, they can choose to do what they wish, and they probably don't think, given the baggage that came with the Usman argument on positive test, they want to go down that road and potentially award somebody $1 million that essentially didn't go through the proper ways, or to speak, or to get there. I'm not accusing them of anything. I'm just saying that's probably their overarching perspective of it.
I can see that. But on that note, Zan, because it was going to go to my follow-up then, how do you feel if you're Brent Primus?
Oh, terrible. He's the odd man, and out in this situation, and if I'm him, I'm bitter. I'm bitter at this for a long time.
I guess that's why PFL gave him the chance to fight for the $1 million in this upcoming season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, he's in the tournament.
And I guess that's why they're not doing the payout for this, because PFL has their own $1 million payouts.
See, that's my thought, is just, man, like, PFL already pays out millions and millions to, like, what, 6 different weight classes? I mean,
Right.
it's tough to honor something that wasn't under your banner, no contracts weren't signed under your banner. Like, I don't know. It's tough.
And that Bellator basically fumbled because of, I should say Bellator and allegedly Usman or Nurmagomedov fumbled with him failing the drug test.
Yeah.
And the lack of transparency.
And I mean, they already spent so much money to buy Bellator in the first place. So, the extra $1 million, obviously it may not kill their salary, but it might not be something they're, looking forward to paying, because contracts weren't signed in their promotion. So they might feel no obligation to follow up with that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of no obligation to follow up, on the other side of things, so Remember how Brennan Ferreira knocked out Ryan Bader, and they said, "Well, congratulations, Henan, you're gonna get Francis Ngannou and his debut." Yeah, about that. Francis, it looks like, wants to do a third boxing fight. He said, and I'm not joking. I will actually take out the article that I wrote for MMA News recently that lists the full quote as to what happened. He actually says, "I feel like boxing owes me now." He says, "What's next for me, baby? A boxing match. I think boxing owes me something now. I have to regain what boxing took from me. I think my ego will not let me step back and let this go like this without doing everything to restore me and prove the world that I am the man of the job." Look, and again, this admittedly with a little bit of bias in my association, but Francis Ngannou signed a contract with the PFL. As somebody who signed a contract with the PFL, you have an obligation to fight. So I get Francis Ngannou has the star power that the PFL has needed, and so you talk about who in control, but at the same time, you signed a contract. Francis Ngannou, you did a public announcement that said the winner of Bader versus Ferreira was going to get you. You have to follow through with that. Because Renan Ferreira is not going to be competing in the heavyweight season, because the expectation was if he won this fight, and he did, he was going to get the super fight with Francis Ngannou. So you can't just have Ferreira sitting on the sidelines for a whole year.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I do feel like one thing I will say though is it's slightly the PFL's fault for not writing it into his contract that he had to fight by this date, because now they opened the door to let him go and box, and I guess always have to consider the possibility that he just wants to keep boxing, especially with that kind of money he's making. So I feel like the PFL should have wrote it into his contract. You have to fight by the start of 2025, the end of 2025, something. They just had to, give him a reason to come back to MMA, basically.
And what? Zan, go ahead.
Well, no, you go ahead, because I think you guys are going to be shocked with what I'm going to have to say.
I was gonna post which I asked you guys before we started recording. The thing is, he's gonna go pursue a third boxing fight. Who the hell, like, that Joshua loss was damaging to him in boxing, I feel. So who's really gonna take the fight with Francis Ngannou like that? You're not gonna get another Joshua fight. Fury's off fighting Usyk for the undisputed heavyweight championship. I mean, considering Wilder's lackluster performance, do we get Ngannou Wilder?
That could be very interesting in Ngannou Wilder match, because you can argue that that's what should have happened instead of the Fury fight or instead of the Joshua fight. You can argue that he should have been fighting Wilder. Let's
remember something. Sorry, Pat, but remember the plan was supposed to be Joshua versus Wilder, but then Wilder put on that bad performance against Parker, which allowed Ngannou to step in.
Yes, very true. Very true. But, I would love to see Ngannou Wilder. I feel like that's a fight that has to be made if Ngannou's going to go back to boxing. But let's not rule out a fight that was rumored heavily before Francis debuted was the Dillian White fight. And Dillian White just picked up a big third-round stoppage this weekend. So he could definitely be another name that's thrown into the hat. Maybe if they don't want to shoot him against a guy like Wilder, a guy like Dillian White could be perfect.
Fair enough. So, Sam, what do you think of all this in terms of his opponent? What happens next?
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you guys wholeheartedly. Here's the thing: the PFL needs Francis Ngannou more than Francis Ngannou needs the PFL. Francis Ngannou is in a position now where he has all the power in the world to do whatever the heck he wants. He feels like he owes nobody any sort of explanation at all. When it comes to me and thinking of what he wants to do with his career, what he's asked for his whole career when it comes to autonomy and transparency, in my opinion, Francis Ngannou should be able to do whatever he wants. If he wants to continue to compete in boxing, he should be able to do that. If he wants to move back over to MMA of his first MMA fight in over 2 years, he should be able to do that. He probably feels like now that no one no one has to answer to him. No one wants to answer to him, and to him that probably feels okay. In terms of who he should fight next, he shouldn't be allowed to handpick who his opponent is going to be. But to me, Dillian White, or even a fight against Dillian White, Daniel Dubois, or Joseph Parker would be between the three options that I would choose for his next fight. And obviously, if he does decide to go back, he does decide to officially begin his PFL career, the Henan Ferrer fight is the fight. But I'm just going to say it right here, right now. We're in the middle of March. I don't think this Ferrer fight happens until at the very latest November. So,
I mean, I guess November, it's better than nothing. They talked about the potential of him. Like, the fact that they were saying, oh, it's going to happen in mid 2024 if he loses to Joshua. I don't think anyone was really expecting that Joshua was going to run through him. So, maybe late 2024 might be a better time frame for that. It's just a matter of like we talked about Pat the last time the two of us were together. Does the PFL maybe need to do a summer pay-per-view instead of a fall pay-per-view like it's done with the championship card?
I think so.
Yeah, champions versus champions 2 should happen, in my opinion, for sure.
And I guess on that card, you would have to try and get Cyborg Pacheco. And, if you're going to talk about star power, I know he's busy trying to pursue the boxing front with, but then there's the Mike Tyson fight. So I don't know. I was going to say maybe try to get Jake Paul, but wait, he's got Tyson. That's going to be an issue. Because I would say at this point this year, you got to try to get the Cyborg Pacheco fight. You got to try to get Francis Ngannou in there. And I know, he's not the level of those guys, but considering his star power and the Paul name, you got to try to get Jake Paul into an MMA fight at some point in 24 too.
Yeah, no, to play on to Zain's point a little bit here, I feel like November would make more sense than anything else if they're not going to have a Champs versus Champs 2 card, because what was he going to...
That's exactly what went into my answer. That's assuming that a Champs versus Champs 2 card does not happen.
Yeah, and they had their championship last year in November. So a middle of the year thing with no Champs versus Champs 2 card wouldn't make sense, because what are they going to do? Have him headline the second regular season, the second wave of regular season bouts? Doesn't make sense. If he headlined the PFL championship card, that would make some sense right there. Even though he wouldn't be in a PFL championship bout like that necessarily, it would still make a lot more sense.
So would you guys agree then the thing to do with Cyborg Pacheco is like we talked about before I left, which was that have him headline one of the ESPN regular season cards as a like they used to do with like they did with Clarissa Shields when she made her PFL debut.
I could see it.
I could see it too. I don't know.
The issue is that they'd have to make their decision very, very quickly.
Very soon. You're right.
Yeah. They'd have to get into action mode really quickly.
Isn't Cyborg boxing again in April too? Like, I don't know what she's up to now.
And I guess my only other question to Zan on your opinion, because you guys are right, the Dillian White fight, I wasn't thinking about that, but where does Deontay Wilder fit into all this? Because if he's not getting the Ngannou fight now, he's gonna have to fight lesser competition. I don't know if he's willing to do that. But
maybe he fights Zhang Zhang, the losers against Joseph Parker fight. Maybe the Zhang fight could be next for him. But you're right. You're right. He doesn't really fit anywhere into this.
Do you think it's time for him to hang up the gloves?
No, not yet.
I think he should still give it another effort. I mean, it was a very bad performance against Joseph Parker. So maybe,
that means then he's going to have to sit and wait.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, Deontay Wilder really doesn't fit into all of this. Just to put it simply, if he doesn't fight Francis, he doesn't fit into this.
Neither does Kevin Lee.
That's true.
Let's go back to the UFC quickly before we get into the recaps and previews. Chris Curtis stepping in on short notice, doing the rematch with Brendan Allen on April 7th. Vettori, unfortunately, suffered some sort of, as he described it in his Instagram video, a freak injury that's going to force him out. Marvin Vettori still is not finished with Brendan Allen, though, based on those comments that he made in there. But I, for one, I know it's not a popular fight, but I, for one, look forward to seeing the Curtis Allen rematch.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but It's a perfect chance for Chris Curtis to climb right up the rankings. And it's a perfect chance for Brendan Allen to get that loss back from a couple of years ago. I mean, he got knocked out pretty bad against Chris Curtis, and I feel like that's one he's wanted to get back since. Obviously, the short notice nature of it does make it a little bit interesting on, what will happen in this fight. But I think it makes a lot of sense for both guys. I'm very much looking forward to this.
Mm-hmm. I do too, and regardless of who wins, I don't think this is seeing the judges. I think that someone gets impressively finished in this fight. What do you guys think?
I like that prediction, honestly. I mean,
get finished, yeah.
With Chris Curtis already knocking out Brendan Allen, obviously that's a possibility. And then, I mean, coming in on short notice in a 5-round main event, it's very possible that Curtis, just doesn't have the proper preparation for this fight, and Brendan Allen gets him down and submits him or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if Chris wins, it's definitely going to be by finish.
Yeah,
but I could definitely see a situation where you're right. If Chris Curtis isn't ready, then Brendan Allen could get a submission win here and get the win back. So this should be a fun fight. I'm looking forward to this one. Let's look back now, guys. Go from looking forward to looking back. UFC Vegas 88, Tybura. So Tai Tuivasa comes out strong. Unfortunately for him, he gasses out pretty quickly, and Marcin Tybura is able to take advantage of that, put him away in the first round with a choke, put him to sleep, and now Tai Tuivasa has lost 4 straight. Guys, I love Tai. I think he's entertaining. He had another great walkout song choice, a song that I did not hear in ages, Unwritten. But look, is he still going to be competing in the heavyweight picture? Yes, but I think his days, where he was towards the top and he was fighting Cyril Gane, the main event in Paris, I think those days behind us now.
I completely agree. What I do want to see, though, what I will say, I mean, what better way to test if Ty still got it? Throw him in there against Robellis, man. He'll get a lot of hype back if he somehow is able to starch Robellis. And Robellis could obviously use a lot from fighting a ranked guy. I mean, that's a fight that just makes so much sense to me because, I mean, the UFC will find one way to work it. Either Ty takes out a hot prospect and he's right back in the mix, or Robellis takes out Ty and Robellis is right there in the rankings.
And to be honest, while I understand it, I believe a lot more of the latter than the former.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say if that it does happen, that makes an excellent TV prelim headliner for sure. That's must see TV without a doubt.
Yeah,
and that's definitely be on a big card.
And that's the thing about Ty. I see him being on prelim cards for pay-per-views. I can see him being early on in the fight night mains, but his days, being a legitimate contender, he's too inconsistent. He lost a couple, he won a couple, losing streak, winning streak, losing streak. He has too much inconsistency to be at the top game.
Yeah, what was it? He lost 3, won 5,
won
5, lost 4. Yeah. Hey, one more loss and he'll have a 7-fight winning streak coming right after that. So, hey, don't sleep on Ty.
Co-main event, nobody won. Bryan Battle looked to be a showcase for him taking on Angelusa. Eye poke happened. It was weird. It was a clash of heads, and when the clash of heads happened, you could see the finger get lodged. It looked like a gouge there, and the fight ends up going to a no contest, and then the fight restarts when the two of them start beefing with one another. And Bryan Battle actually goes on a big cussing spree, and during his post-fight interview with Michael Bisping, basically saying that Lusa was looking out of the fight. I don't know if I can say that, but I can definitely say that Lusa was definitely losing the fight within that first round.
For sure, and there's no question about it that if it wasn't for the battle would have went clearly, whether it would have been by TK or a decision. And I think the biggest loser in this whole thing is Battle because he got screwed out of getting a signature win. So
I will say Battle took a big win on the mic after the fight, though. That's one thing that he took a win on was,
true.
His performance on the mic definitely earned him some fans, whether you thought it was funny, whether you were already a fan and became more of a fan just because of how loose he was on the mic, no pun intended.
Or whether you hated it because some people thought he was being real professional.
Yeah, no, for sure. So it definitely gained his name some notoriety, though. So my question to you guys would be, would you like to see this ran back or would you like to see Bryan Battle move on?
I'd like to see this simply for the sole purpose of the post fight
Yeah, you can't
afterwards.
have that. You can't have that and not run it back.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting to me because, like you said, Battle was clearly winning the fight. It looked to be on the route to a showcase performance. So I'm just wondering, with this new, I guess, hype around his name, will the UFC want to run back a fight that it looked like he was clearly going to win, or will they want to use his name now against possibly a guy in the lower part of the rankings, a guy right outside the rankings? I'm just not really sure what the UFC does here. I'd like to see it run back, but I also would like to see Battle move on. I mean, he is what, 5-1 in the promotion, even without the no contest and everything. Could have been 6-1. So I feel like Battle could, definitely get a little bit of a boost up in competition. I feel like this was not a step down necessarily, but I feel like this isn't a fight that was gonna, even in a win, I didn't feel like it was going to raise Battle's stock tremendously. I feel like what he did on the mic after the no contest might have raised his stock more than cruising to a unanimous decision against Lusa.
Fair enough.
Well said.
Speaking of performances, hey, I like what you guys wrote here. The Fountain of Youth. It was a turn back performance for Ovince St. Preux. He still got it at 40 years old. Big win over Kennedy Nzechukwu. I'm going to be real, guys. What happened, Zan?
I said it was a great fight, especially round 3 was awesome.
Yeah, round 3 was awesome.
It was absolutely fun. The two just really threw all the lever that they could throw. And I will say, though, I do think Kennedy maybe held back a little bit. I think there was a little more on the trigger than he could have, at least in the early rounds. Like you said, round 3 was pretty awesome. I wonder if Kennedy unleashed a little more, like in the opening round, if he would have gotten the win over OSP here. But I mean, give the credit where it is. 40 years old, OSP can still do his thing. And I'm hoping that in his next fight, we can see one of those classic OSP submissions.
Yeah, no, I feel like an OSP fight against another prospect, maybe like Bogdan Guskov would be interesting. He's coming off a big knockout, like something like that. But I just think it's funny because you said that Kennedy might have held back a bit. Do you think that might have something to do with the fact that he was knocked out really bad by Dustin Jacoby in his last fight?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's what really made him hold back in this fight. And then we saw him even get dropped in that third round against OSP. I mean, Kennedy's chin just doesn't look sustainable at this point in his career, which is not good because he's not old by any means. So
no,
a lot of people are calling for him to be cut after this fight.
It's weird because, Pat, at the same time, I feel like if he took a chance or two in that first round, he might have gotten the win over OSP here.
No, I agree.
And he just got hit a lot too.
Yeah,
OSP
had like 150 significant strikes in 3 rounds. That was like the most ridiculous part of this all.
I think the fight was too entertaining that he's not going to get cut here, but I think he's going to be basically put in a win or go home situation in his next fight.
Yeah, I could very well see that.
Are they going to give him like a young debut in the hopes that the debut and wins is probably what's
in the UFC probably.
Yeah.
Controversy at the rest of this Vegas 88 card. Christian Rodriguez, Isaac Dilgerain. They go to a controversial decision with C-Rod getting the win. I think the 3 of us all scored to fight for Isaac, though.
Yes, 28-27. I'm pretty sure is what we all.
Very weird scorecard. 28-27 with no point deductions.
Nope.
10-8s both ways. I don't think that's ever happened. I think we talked about it was. There's been 3 times where that's happened. A point deduction when it happens.
Yeah, no, this was the first time that it happened with 2 guys scoring legit 10-8 rounds with no point deduction. I mean, this was a really strange fight. Isaac came out and just kind of mauled Christian. Second round, I mean, yeah, C-Rod landed a couple good strikes, but it didn't feel like it mattered in terms of the control time Dilgerain had. He had another like 4 minutes of control time in round 2. And then third round, C-Rod mauls Dilgerain and just kind of pounds him out and just, had him in so many bad spots. Fight looked like it could have been finished. But it didn't.
You know what Dana always says, don't leave the fight in the judge's hands.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, it just sucks for Dilgerain because he was undefeated coming into this fight. And you always hate to see an undefeated prospect lose their O on a decision that a lot of people don't agree with.
Oh, I'm still sour. Pat, I'm still sour about AJ McKee losing his though in that rematch with Patricio.
Yeah, exactly. So, you really just don't like to see that. But I mean, like you said, can't leave it in the judge's hands, especially in a fight like that.
For sure.
Speaking of not leaving it in the judge's hands, Gerald Mearshart, shout out to him opening the card against Brian Barberena. He has now tied Anderson Silva for most finishes in middleweight history with his submission of the night. Give Gerald credit. I mean, he's a veteran, obviously not up there. He's had his fair share of losses to guys who are contenders, but and you got to give credit to Mearshart. It takes an accomplishment to break or tie one of these records, and he's managed to do so.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, Gerald Mearshart looked like Gerald Mearshart in this fight. No questions about it. I mean, he kind of just did his thing on the feet for a little bit, got the fight to the ground, got it done with. I mean,
yeah, this was the Mearshart you wanted to see.
Yeah, this is a classic Gerald Mearshart performance. I mean, he's obviously still got it in the tank. He's one of those guys that I don't feel like he ever gets dropped. He's going to be in the UFC until he retires, especially now tying the record for most finishes. I mean, I don't see a world where he doesn't break it unless they just give him ridiculously tough matchups to end his career. Because, I mean, he's been a finisher through and through. And if he has another 4 UFC fights, I almost guarantee that he finishes one of them,
For sure.
I think it's time to consider whether or not Barberena will be in the UFC much longer, because that is his 4th consecutive loss, and he has not won a fight in over 2 years now.
I think this is a situation where you did a cut.
Yeah, I have to agree with both of you that I mean, as fun as he is and everything, it just, especially at 185, I mean, Barberena really doesn't seem to have much of an impact at 185, and doesn't look like he's at a point where he's going to cut to 170 again. So
right, I mean, let the PFL pick him up and put him in Bellator, or let him hone his craft for an LFA before he gets a major promotion again.
Yeah, no, sadly, I mean, as fun as Brian Barberena is, I mean, I think his UFC run is probably done with this loss.
All right, and now speaking of Bellator, guys, let's talk about Bellator. The first Bellator under the PFL banner. It's going to be Bellator 302 over England. We're going to have a new champion at the end of this night, because either Corey Anderson or Carl Moore is taking the light heavyweight championship. Big opportunity for Corey Anderson. Second chance at getting the light heavyweight championship. Obviously, he made it to the finals of the Grand Prix, which needed a run back. They needed 2 final fights of the no contest the first time.
Yep.
He comes up short. And then Carl Moore, I mean, you want to talk a guy like Corey Anderson, title on the line at a big stage like Bellator 302, with the circumstances of it being the first under the PFL banner. This is a big opportunity for Carl Moore. I just don't know if he's going to have what it takes to get around the experience and main event factor that Corey Anderson has. Corey Anderson has been chasing light heavyweight gold for a long time between here and his days in the UFC. And this is a big opportunity for Corey Anderson. I would say this is now or never to become a light heavyweight champion.
No, I'd have to agree for 100%.
Yeah, this is a golden opportunity, and I'm going to be a little biased considering he's from the town of Rockford, and that's honestly not too far away from me. And I've always wanted to see Corey Anderson be successful. This is the one where he gets it done, even though he's going into enemy territory and Carl Moore is tough. I'm gonna say a 4th round stoppage. What do you guys think?
I mean, Carl Moore is very solid for sure, but I just 4-fight winning streak, solid winning streak, 4-0 under the Bellator banner. But I don't necessarily know if he deserved a title shot. I can't say for sure that he did. Obviously, in Ireland, they wanted to have a guy headlining that represents the region. I completely get it, but it might just be a little too soon for him, if you ask me. I'd probably have to say, despite his his chin being a little not the best, I still have to favor Corey Anderson in this fight for sure.
So, unless this is a little out of date, like 298, but it looks like the last light heavyweight rankings. I'm looking on the Wikipedia for Bellator right now. Corey Anderson was ranked number 1, or at the very least within the top 2 or 3. Carl Moore was ranked number 4. And you look at Carl Moore's most recent fights, it's been Lee Chadwick, Carl Albrecht, Maciej, Rosansky, and Alex Polizzi. And I don't want to take anything away from him because like you said, 4-fight win streak. Something to note though, he didn't fight for a span of 3 years. I don't know if that was just COVID pandemic or if that was injury related or both. But you look at those names and you look at that fights, and then you look at Corey Anderson, Phil Davis, Vadim Nemkov, Ryan Bader, Jan Blachowicz, Melvin Manhoef, Johnny Walker. I don't know if Carl Moore is overcoming all of that.
That's the thing. The experience difference is wild in this fight.
So I'm actually going to go a little earlier than Zain. I'm going to go for third round TKO. Corey Anderson gets at long last.
Yeah, I'll agree with something like that. I'll say I think that sounds good to me. Third round ground and pound TKO, something like that sounds right up Corey Anderson's alley for this fight.
For sure. We do have a title defense on the line. I mentioned Pitbull earlier in the show. He'll be defending the featherweight gold in the co-main event, taking on Jared Kennedy. I'm actually really looking forward to this fight more than I am the Anderson Moore fight.
I agree with you there for sure. I mean, this is a fight that's been in the works for a while. It's a fight that should have happened. I know what was the original booking for this matchup? It was what? I don't even know what they had in this spot. Was it Kennedy Gallagher was the fight, I want to say?
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think it was Jeremy Kennedy versus James Gallagher, which makes no sense because Jeremy Kennedy had already earned his title shot by far and away, in my opinion. So I'm happy to see that, obviously sucks for the reasoning because we didn't get Pitbull Pinedo. We didn't get Pitbull versus Braga. So Pitbull was able to come step on this card. I guess he was ready, training and everything. But I prefer this fight. I mean, this is a great fight that should have happened. Pitbull kind of needs to prove something here, in my opinion, because of his losses in Ryzen and everything like that when they did the promotion event. So I feel like, this is a big fight for both of these guys.
Absolutely. By the way, correct. They originally booked Jeremy Kennedy, James Gallagher, but when everything went down with the Pinedo fight, they rebooked Pitbull to this fight.
Yep.
And then they rebooked James Gallagher to face Leandro Higo.
Yeah.
So that's that. I'm wondering, I feel like Gallagher, love him or hate him, whether you think deserving the opportunity or not, I could see a situation where if Gallagher beats Higo, he's going to get the winner of this fight.
That could be interesting for sure. I could definitely see that.
I can see that too.
But I definitely agree with you, Pat, because like you mentioned, even though he's the champion, he's had his fair of losses of late. He beat Adam Borks. He beat Kleber Earths at that 2022 Bellator Ryzen show. But then he loses to Sergio Pettis when he was going for the champ status.
Yeah.
And then I know this short notice battle and a catchweight bout, but then as you mentioned, the Ryzen fight, Chihiro Suzuki getting knocked out in such brutal fashion. You're right. He's got something to prove, and I'm concerned about what his future might hold if he loses to Jeremy Kennedy here. And it's a real possibility that he could. Kennedy, his wins have come against Emmanuel Sanchez, Aaron Pico, and Pedro Caballo. I know the Pico win was a shoulder injury, but still, that's a solid 3 to get a title shot. Yeah,
for sure. I feel like Kennedy definitely deserved this title shot. My, if I had to go with a prediction here, God, I don't want to say.
I'm gonna say Pitbull by decision. I think Pitbull retains. I'm gonna give him some. I still am gonna believe in him, but I think Kennedy's gonna be tough enough to take this all the way, and it's gonna end on a decision.
Just matching them up side by side, I'd probably have to agree with you. But man, there's something that's telling me that Pitbull may be falling off at this point in his career, which I really don't want to believe. But I mean, I feel like there's a chance that this could look like the AJ McKee fight, the first one, where Kennedy just gets him in a bad position early, potentially gets a submission or something like that. But I would have to agree with you at the moment that, I'd favor Pitbull to win a decision in this fight. Kennedy's a tough guy.
I would say Pitbull by split, but he'll have to rally after losing the first 2 rounds to come back and win. I think it'll be a good. It'll be probably Pitbull's toughest test in a couple years. That's what I think. It's going to be a fight where if people didn't know who Jeremy Kennedy was before the fight, everybody's going to know who Jeremy Kennedy is after the fight. That's what I think. and it's one of those fights too where if it's very close, a rematch later this year at some point or early next year is totally warranted. So
One thing to all on the Bellator 302 card to watch out for: number one contenders fight in the middleweight division. You got Aaron Jeffrey and his mullet taking on Fabian Edwards, the younger Edwards brother. This is going to be a fun one. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think this is a huge opportunity for both men in this fight. So you have Fabian Edwards coming off of, he tried to challenge for the middleweight title at Bellator 299, got brutally knocked out by Johnny Eblin. So big opportunity for him to earn a rematch, or pardon me, earn another shot at the middleweight title. And for Aaron Jeffrey's case, this is the biggest stage that he's been a top prospect for years now, and now this is the chance that he has to finally, get to that next level and challenge for a world championship.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is it's a massive fight for both men for sure. Fabian needs a big win coming off of a pretty brutal loss to Johnny Eblin. He got knocked out bad in that fight. I mean, those elbows raining down on him was just really bad to watch. And Aaron Jeffrey, I mean, it's now or never. I mean, he got his chance to fight for the title with a win here. And, he's fought some very, very tough competition throughout his career. I think it might serve him well here, just due to the fact that he's fought guys like Sean Brady, Cal Barrio, Andre Petrosky. I mean, don't get me wrong, not bad competition that Fabian Edwards has faced, but his best opponents were probably obviously Johnny Eblin, but in his wins, Lyoto Machida and Gegard Mousasi, who were both on the tail end of their careers for sure. So it'll be a chance for Fabian Edwards to prove that he can beat another guy around his age that's hungry, just as hungry as he is. And I think this is going to be a really interesting fight.
Do you see this guys being some sort of? Do you think this is going to be a grappling battle? No, the two guys here.
I do, but I think that one of these guys is going to set up their grappling maneuvers with striking, but play conservative and try to not try to knock the other guy out. If that makes sense, it's going to be a slow, methodical approach the whole fight.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think this fight probably goes the distance. I mean, it is only 3 rounds, so I would have to say I think this fight almost for sure is going to go the distance. I favor Aaron Jeffrey just because I feel like his wrestling is better, and I feel like he'll be able to put a nice pressure and pace onto Fabian Edwards, but Fabian could very well sit on the outside and outstrike Aaron, so he has to be careful for that and kind of turn this into a dogfight in a sense, where he gets in that pocket and he gets up close and personal with Fabian.
I could definitely see that, and Pat, I 100% agree with your expectation for this fight. I'm going to side with Aaron Jeffrey for the same things and give him a unanimous decision win and the next title shot.
Yeah,
I'm going to say Edwards, but it's close, 2-1. It'll be a good fight. Though I just feel like Edwards is due for a bounce back win, and I think that this gas tank will overwhelm Jeffrey by the time it gets to round 3. So,
okay.
All right, we got an interesting one at the Apex.
Interesting's a way to put it.
Rose Namajunas, the former 2-time strawweight champion, going to be taking on Amanda Ribas. Big opportunity here for Amanda. If she gets a win here, she's definitely going to be one of the potential names in line for a strawweight title fight. That being said, I think Rose Namajunas is going to do everything in her power to ensure that Amanda does not get the best of her. Rose is guys, somebody pointed this out before on MMA Twitter. Rose is a very weird MMA math case because she beats Joanna twice. She beats Whaley twice, but she loses to Carla Esparza twice.
I mean, it's about as odd as it gets because, like you just said, and Joanna and Wei Li both kind of handled Carla in their fight. So, yeah, the MMA math is just not mathing with Rose. Never really has. She's always been an odd fighter, to say the least. And, I mean, going into this fight, on first glance, I feel like you have to favor Rose. But if you dig into it, I mean, Rebos could very well pull something off here if her chin holds up, because that's Rebos's worst trait is her chin. And if it holds up, she could really make this a competitive fight with Rose.
And honestly, my concern, because she's been inconsistent since January 21. It's been concentrating wins and losses.
Yeah.
You know, she beats Viviana Rujo, Luana Pinheiro in her last fight, but Marina Rodriguez knocked her out. Macy Barber knocked her out. Caitlin Chukagian took her the distance, and that was a split decision. So whenever she's been faced up,
a split decision loss, I might add, that was very, very, very heavily debated.
Yeah, no, I like
fair enough.
there.
But my point being, those couple of knockout losses, and whenever she faces the top level competition, Ribas always seems to not come out on a good night.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, she's very inconsistent, and it's just so strange because, you know, she beats girls like Verna Jandiroba. She beats girls like Arujao. She beats girls like Luana Pinheiro. Some very solid women, very solid, but slept by Macy Barber, slept by Marina Rodriguez. I mean, you just never really know what Amanda Ribas you're going to get. And like you said, been trading wins and losses since January 2021. She's coming off a win here, so, you know, not looking good for her in that sense either.
And I know Rose Namajunas has lost 2 straight. She lost the Esparza fight, the infamous one at 274. Lost to Mano Fierro. That was a fight that took place at strawweight. And Rose was making her flyweight debut. That was in Paris. But you look at those names: Esparza, Fierro, Jessica Andrade. She lost to. She's only lost to some top level girls. And while you can say the same with Amanda Ribas, Rose Namajunas has been to the top of this game. Amanda hasn't. I think even though Rose has 3 losses, Amanda still has more to prove in this fight than Rose. And this is going to be a situation where I tell Amanda, prove me wrong. I'm gonna stick with my faith in Rose. I'm gonna say Rose gets a decision win here.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys, 100%. My only concern is that, you know, Rose isn't as active anymore. Like she's pretty inconsistent as well. And like I said, if Ribas's chin holds up here and she doesn't get rocked, doesn't get hurt, I mean, she could make this a very competitive fight.
I will add to that, Pat. If Rose does lose this fight, you may have to consider if this is good for her.
Yeah, I mean, that would be 3 in a row, and I obviously know it doesn't count or anything, but she got subbed in a minute by Jillian Robertson. That definitely demolished her confidence in her grappling, if you had to ask me. So, I mean, it'd be 3 in a row in MMA and that loss on top of it. I mean, I just don't know what she'd still be in the sport for at that point. And not to add, if Rose loses this fight, I mean, her record would be 11-7 in MMA. It would
that's not.
I mean, if she continued to fight and lost another time or two, 11-8 or 11-9 would look so bad for Rose Namajunas.
I know.
It's true.
So yeah.
Guys, we're not going to talk about the event because I don't know what you want to talk about with that Justin Taffa fight. But here's a fight that you guys did want to talk about: Cameron Saaiman and Payton Talbot.
Yeah, this is the talk all over MMA Twitter for this past week. A lot of people are, I feel like, very confident in one side or the other here. And the Payton Talbot line, betting wise, has been catching some steam lately. I think the fight started out with pick'em odds. He's up to about -150 now, maybe a little bit higher. So a lot of people like the potential of Payton Talbot. I don't know if I've seen enough yet to justify picking him over Cameron Saaiman, because I do like Cameron Saaiman. I think he's pretty well rounded, despite the fact that he fouls and he has some problems, definitely has some holes. But I don't know. I just feel like Saaiman is like
his game is
ready.
Better. I agree. His game is better. Yeah. I'm gonna be very curious what Brett is gonna have to say this week on Friday, if he's gonna take that Talbot line. But like you, Pat, I think more of Simon's more all-round game, and I think he's just an all-around better package than Talbot is. I think Talbot's still developing. This will be good experience for him, but I'm going to side with Saaiman on this one.
Yeah, and Talbot's last fight, I mean, he fought Nick Aguirre, who not a horrible fighter by any means, but he's not on the level of Cameron Saaiman, in my opinion.
Not even close. You're right.
Aguirre manhandled him in that first round, like that was not a close fight in that first round. So obviously he got the third round choke there, but against a guy like Simon that has the potential to do the same, I'm not to say, Talbot's bad by any means, but I just don't understand the steam behind him in this fight.
Yeah, I like Simon here, but more importantly, the prop that I like is for this fight not to go the distance. I think no matter how this fight plays out, someone is getting viciously finished and it ends up becoming that one of these guys is more than likely going to end up getting a performance of the night bonus. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Brett, if you're watching this, make sure to talk about this fight, please. We need some answers.
Please.
Mhm.
Even if you just skip over it, just give us a little bit of thoughts. You know what I mean? We definitely would like to hear that. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a great fight between two prospects that I honestly also can't say I fully understand
A
because
great a great fight between two prospects that I might add are also Dana White Contender Series alumni too.
yes.
So,
But I
mhm.
also just don't think that they needed to fight. I think there's definitely a lot of other guys in the bantamweight division that both these guys could have fought, and I don't understand why Simon has to go on a 2-fight losing streak or why Talbot's hype has to be taken out so early. I just think that they could have let these guys stay far apart from each other for a bit.
Well said.
One other thing I want to mention, guys, before we go off the air, because focusing so much and trying to get back into the swing of things, failed to realize this breaking on the day that we're recording this. Yeah, BC Amazon Prime pay-per-view premiere. It's already in shambles. Keith Thurman's out of the fight. So
Yeah,
now it's gonna be Tim Tszyu taking on Sebastian Fundora for the WBO and vacant WBC super welterweight titles.
Yeah, so according to a press release that I got officially from the PBC itself at the time we're recording this, the press release says Sue had originally been scheduled to face two-time world champion Keith Thurman, who was forced to withdraw after suffering a bicep injury in training. Fundora had already been preparing to compete in the pay-per-view opener before being moved up to the main event, so they didn't have to do too much reshuffling of the card, but still a pretty unfortunate situation, especially for all the Keith Thurman fans that spent their hard-earned money to buy tickets to go to Vegas. And as people have kept alluding to all over the boxing Twitter sphere, BBC just can't seem to catch a break no matter what they do.
I mean,
So,
Dan, I already said I didn't like the fact that versus Tim Tszyu was a pay-per-view. Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora?
I know.
Do you hear? Wait, Nick. Wait. Zan, do you hear that? Do you hear it in the distance? It's Rick Glaser laughing his ass off.
Of course. Oh, and speaking of, it's just like he told me about a month ago, a really poor business decision to put this card on at the same time as March Madness. It's a really bad idea. Look at how worse it is now. It may not even crack 100,000
Can
people.
I be honest with you guys? Can I
Yeah.
be really honest with
Of
you?
course.
Of course.
Okay. You got Tim Tszyu versus Fundora here on March 30th. UFC Atlantic City, which is going to be headlined by Aaron Blanchfield and Manon Fiorot. Guys, I think I'd watch March Madness over both of those cards.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too.
Yeah, no, if you're a college basketball fan, can't blame you at all. I'm not as big into college basketball, so I'll probably be watching UFC that night, but couldn't blame you at all for
I
skipping
probably will
both
be
of these
watching
cards.
UFC anyway because
Yes.
of MMA news,
Yes.
but I'll probably have March Madness on the side.
Yeah, no, you'll have March Madness on the big screen.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Guys, it was good to be back.
Yeah, great to have you back.
All right.
Good to have you back, Tom. And just to give you guys a little bit of a run through, this is something that's kind of close to my heart a little bit. For those of you guys who have not been paying attention, this is something that was established at the beginning of the year, very similar to our football or Friday shows. If you've ever seen those where we keep track of all of our football picks, we're doing the exact same thing with the UFC. So going into UFC Vegas 89, Dana leads the field with a 69-40-5 record. Tom Albano was right behind him at 68-41-3, and I'm sitting there in the last place, and probably will be for the next little bit. It's sitting at 55-54-3. So those are our current pick standings according to the Master UFC picks tracker that is updated every single Saturday, regardless of what card it is. So there you go.
Nice. All right. Before we get out of here, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Network. make sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at MMA Outsiders ETB. Make sure to do the same for the network. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at ETB Network. Make sure to check out, make sure to take the Outsiders on the road with you on any sort of audio-only platform, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Acast, Apple Podcasts, so much more. If you are listening on those platforms, make sure to go over to our YouTube home, youtube.com/UTB Network. Hit that subscribe button. We just passed 700 subscribers, so big day for ETB here. We want to continue. To my right, as always, Sam Bando, staff writer of BJPen.com and MMA Knockout. Follow him on social media at SamBando99. To the bottom, our producer, Pat Danna, Combat Sports UK journalist. Make sure to follow him at Pat Danna MMA. And I'm Tom Albano. In case y'all forgot, MMA news contributor, fan-sided MMA, and with the PFL for every, all their big cards. So I will be doing the website, doing the play-by-play recaps on their website this coming week for Bellator 302. So my first time under a Bellator banner.
Let's go.
Wow.
Let's go.
Okay. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I got to get Bellator shirts now to match my PFL ones.
Absolutely. So I covered. So I covered 301, and you're covering 302. We love to. We love to see it. That's
And
awesome.
I covered 300.
Hey,
Yay.
Let's go. Let's go. That's awesome.
Maybe it's a good thing that Bellator is still around because we have some sort of deep connection to it.
Yeah, seriously.
That's awesome.
All right, make sure to follow me on social media at Thomas J. Albano. And that's going to do it. So for Pat Danna, for Zain Bando, I'm Tom Albano. And we'll see you next week on episode 77 of the MMA Outsiders. Take care, all.
Take care. Be Joe Pfeiffer.
Be Joe Pfeiffer.
Pfeiffer.